Well, aesthetically, we wanna have a nice wide open area, but you can't. So what are the options? You have to put a rated door there. Well, we don't want the door. You're gonna have to have the door, but if you have a door that you wanna have open, maintain that nice aesthetics of that open room, put the door on, you know, magnetic door hold opens, tie it to the fire alarm. The only time those doors will close is if the fire alarm goes off, you know, then you've protected your space.
Are we allowed to make those recommendations, or is that, they have to figure it out as the designer slash architect?
Well, that's a recommendation that you're not designing a damn thing, okay? That is one of those things where, you know, absolutely there's nothing wrong with that. You know, the option is build a wall, have it, you know, or build a set of doors that are fire rated and self-closing, positive latching all the time, you know, that are closed all the time, you know, like these, or have a, you know, magnetic door hold open in place, tied to the fire alarm. That's, after that, it's for them to coordinate with the fire alarm company and make everything happen. But you can absolutely do that. What you can't do, and I apologize that I didn't bring up the listing here, I'll do that in a second, but what you can't do is tell them exactly how to construct a wall. They have to tell you how they're gonna construct a wall. My position, I am a plan reviewer. I am not a designer. So I don't design things, I review things. So for me to go and say, well, do, you know, 2 layers of 5/8 sheetrock and, you know, 2x6 metal studs, 16 on center, that's not for me to do. You provide that information for me, I will review, I will approve, and I will permit. Or I will, you know, I will review and I will okay the, you know, the recommended repair to the inspection that I did and the deficiency that I found. So how about this picture? What are we looking at here? Looking at Paul Willette's, for those of you who know Paul Willette's basement, you know, race fans hanging there, his memorabilia. We don't know what kind of occupancy this is, we have no clue, but, you know, maybe it's a garage or a man cave or something based on this, or maybe they had a birthday party and that says happy birthday or happy anniversary, so it looks like they have something up here too. But I'd say it's some sort of a commercial building. Looks like we have some doors with some fire rated or some panic hardware, self-closer device, exit signage, maybe a pull station, manual pull station. But what do we have for concerns with this photo?
Well, you have your lighting.
Ceiling covering, lighting. What kind of issues do we have with the, we'll start with the lighting. What kind of issues do we have with the lighting?
Well, the material that's located in close proximity to the lighting.
Okay, so we're going back to the ceiling covering essentially. What's wrong with the ceiling covering?
It's drooping.
It's drooping.
We
Yeah.
It has no fire, well, more than likely it has no fire rate
More than likely it has no fire rating,
as a barrier.
right? It almost looks like plastic to me.
Yeah.
Maybe holding up insulation. You know, it's kind of tough to tell. But do we know? We don't. Is there any way for us to tell? No. How are we gonna move forward with this?
Ask some questions.
You're gonna ask questions. Their deficiency or their notice of violation or whatever you wanna call it is gonna be, please provide documentation of how this meets interior finish rating for whatever occupancy we're dealing with, right? So give me some information on it. I'll tell you, there's a lot of the box stores that are popping up. You may have contacted their corporate office recently that have exposed ceilings like this. A lot of your mercantiles, smaller mercantiles, 10,000 or under 10,000 square feet mercantiles, that you know, they're steel buildings, and they have this on, you know, similar product to this on the exterior walls and in the ceilings. That's the insulation. Steel building, Morton buildings or Murox buildings, steel buildings with the insulation, the plastic covering on the insulation. all over the place. Ask the question, you know, what's the flame spread rating? How does this meet the interior ceiling or wall finish rating? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna leave it exposed, or are you gonna be covering that product? Good question to ask. Okay? Any other items that are jumping out at you?
You just have different types of materials on the walls.
Different types of materials on the walls?
So it looks like you might have some drywall, you might have some paneling.
Yep. I'm guessing this kind of looks almost masonry type,
Yeah.
but tough to tell. Paneling, I wouldn't argue that, it does kind of look like paneling. So again, depending on our occupancy, depending on, you know, the circumstances, ask the question, how does that meet the interior finish rating for that type of occupancy? You know, is it a class A, B, or C finish rating? What's it required to be? Okay, one other thing before we move on to the next slide that I want you to potentially find here.
No smokes or emergency lighting?
No smokes or emergency lighting. I'll agree with you on the emergency lighting. Smoke detection. I hear this all the time. I get phone calls from fire chiefs and you know, code officials, fire inspectors. Commercial building, there's no smoke detection. Is smoke detection required in a commercial building? Necessarily, I mean, you know, some places. What's that?
What's the occupancy?
What's the occupancy? Well, that's actually a fantastic question, believe it or not. What did you say?
The size as well.
The size as well? So where do we find smoke detectors generally?
On the ceiling.
On the ceiling? What kind of occupancies generally?
Homes.
Home? Yeah? Where people do what? Sleep. So if I have a bank, it's a commercial building, does a bank need to have a smoke detector in it, or a smoke detection? Are there people sleeping there?
No.
No. Smoke detection is required typically where people sleep. Okay? Why do we have smoke detectors? To wake people up, to alert them to be able to exit the area. Most of the time, smoke detection is gonna be found. There are other instances, so don't discredit it, but 99% of the time, you're gonna find smoke detection is required, or 100% of the time, smoke detection is required where people sleep. Daycares, if we have children sleeping, we're gonna have smoke detection, okay? So, smoke detection and fire alarm systems are not necessarily one and the same. Okay, we don't have fire alarms in our dwellings, in our homes, but we have smoke detection there. You may have a fire alarm system without smoke detection. It may be just a fire alarm system tied to the sprinkler system or tied to manual activated devices. So, smoke detectors in general, only when people are sleeping. You know, that is the first rule of thumb. Then you may have some exceptions to that. But the other item I wanted to point out, and I know it's very hard to see, we have a closer device on this door. We see any on that door?
Nope.
Okay, there isn't one on that door. What's on the other side of this door? It's an exit. We don't know if it actually is an exit to the exterior, or if it's an exit just to another room, or an exit to a corridor. We have no information about this, but these are all observations to make. Emergency lighting was a great one. I don't see any emergency lighting, and it looks pretty dark and dingy in here. Okay?
You even have some duct work, it looks like.
Duct work?
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So if we have duct work, that's telling me that we have a warm air furnace probably. Yep. Okay, how about this building? What are we looking at here? We're looking at a building with some tires.
No ceiling wire.